Okay, hey everybody. This is Kristen with Therapy Practice University. I'm with Deanna Brauer. You are an LPC, right? And we are talking about when you want to quit in private practice. And Deanna, you actually have quit private practice.
Yes.
From what I understand is you're flipping houses now?
I am. I
Cool.
love that. Yes, I'm in flipping houses, and then I do keep my toe dipped in the therapy world, though, because I'm the executive director of American Counseling Association of Missouri. But I'm not in an active therapist role, even though I am my career.
Right. You do a great job too. Thank you so much. The first time I talked to you on the phone, I was like, she is really nice. I like this girl. So I read a passage to you that I found on the internet on one of those days that I wanted to quit private practice. And I thought I would read it to everybody. And then we can sort of talk about it. Sound good? Okay. Okay, so it reads, from the start, graduate school undermined my emotional stability by weakening my defenses. As I learned in class, we all employ an array of defense mechanisms to help maintain psychological equilibrium. These protective strategies tend to function largely outside of conscious awareness. Why? Because our psychic defenses, like a nation's military strategies, must remain concealed in order to be effective. If you become aware, for instance, that you're using denial to avoid painful feelings, those feelings are more likely to emerge. I read this and I was like, this is like perfect.
Oh, and again, so eloquently put about the internal struggle that you go through. I would think we all go through as a therapist.
Yeah, for sure. So why do you think this is such a taboo topic? I have this, nobody has said that it's taboo, but I have this feeling like, ooh, talking about wanting to quit therapy. Why does it feel taboo, do you think?
Well, first of all, I think you're exactly right. I think it is a taboo that is unspoken. Of course, but you don't even get to talk about that it's a taboo.
Yeah.
And it's a great question. The first thing that comes to my mind, and I don't know if anyone else relates to this, is it's like being a therapist is viewed as a calling, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not a profession, but that it's 24/7 forever until the day you die. And right? It's like so weighty and heavy, and then give up, because even if you give up, it still follows you. But I really feel like a lot of people see it as more of a calling than profession.
I think you're right, and I think that's why so many clinicians have trouble like marketing themselves and taking payments and things like that. And that's a whole nother conversation. But it's like, oh, this is a calling, almost like a priest. I shouldn't feel like I can make a living off of helping someone with their problems. But it's also very heavy.
It does feel heavy, which yes, it's a heavy profession, but it doesn't always have to be so serious and weighty. Mark on that.
I think what the passage is getting to, though, is about how much we have to learn about the inner workings of the mind, and inherently we learn about the inner workings of our own mind, and that can be a factor as far as like why someone would want to quit. Because the way I was feeling this one day that I found this passage was like, I am so tired of thinking about feelings. Like, I don't even want to have to deal with another freaking feeling for like the rest of my life. It would be fine. And it's just because you have your own feelings and then all these feelings from your clients, and then you're constantly analyzing them, and it becomes a lot.
It's a lot. And I think that's why I like houses, because tile doesn't, it's pretty simple. But one thing that also struck me about that passage, and again, I think brilliantly written, is that balance between being authentic, right? We're authentic in the therapy room, outside too, but that's what we bring in the counseling world is who we are, but we have to balance that constantly, how we're interacting with our clients and how we're feeling inside. That's a moving part every day.
And that could be another reason why somebody would want to quit, because you're always on. And if you don't figure out how to balance that, which is basically what we're talking about is boundaries, it exhausts you.
And maybe that you just hit the nail on the head, that it's about professional boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, since we think, okay, they're in a 100% helping relationship. Do they feel the same struggles about marketing themselves? No. Are they on all the time? Yes and no, because they may be on call, but when they're not on call, they are not on call.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's all.
That's the trick for a therapist, is to, when you go home, turn it off, stop the analyzing. And maybe that's for a suggestion for new therapists or all therapists, you know, because you get into habits, and that's definitely something to watch. I literally, when I come to home, I'm like, okay, you're done analyzing feelings for the day, including your own, like, just stop. So, are there any other reasons that you can think of why someone would feel like they want to quit private practice?
Well, one of the reasons that I quit was the constant worry. And again, maybe this is about boundaries, and maybe this is why not necessarily supervision is so important, but just having strong cohorts and peers that you can off of, because isolating. So I was very concerned dying and committing suicide.
You're concerned about a client committing suicide or dying or hurting themselves, and there's a lot of liability associated with that. Yes,
not only are you concerned about them, of course, your family, but then the liability.
Something popped in my head and then it left. Oh, speaking of consulting and having a group, I've noticed that there's a ton of like online therapy, like where therapy is conducted online. And so I was talking with Nicole, my partner, yesterday, and I was like, maybe we should offer like a professional consulting group that's like basically a webinar, and you hop on it, you join, and you talk about your clinical cases. And Zoom is apparently HIPAA compliant, so that's a completely okay thing to do. So that's coming.
It's funny, because I think there's a huge need for that. And then with the Missouri Counseling Association, first looking at starting that up this year.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that's awesome. And you don't have to leave your office or your house or wherever, you know, you just hop on, and it's not like this big inconvenience of getting in your car and driving and doing all this stuff. And I think what's even an added bonus is you could be talking to a clinician in Florida. And so if you have questions about getting your licensure set up in Florida or some other state, there's also opportunities to get some support and feedback on how that process goes without having to call the state and, you know, how they answer questions. So
here's another big reason why I left here. And I'm sitting here battling with myself. Do I bring this up?
Bring it up.
Just about how taboo so many things are about the counseling world and wanting to leave. But I think part of the boundary discussion that's critical for therapists is therapist safety. I've heard very little about it, and to talk about safety in a place that's empowering and not from a fear base. I have had a number of situations, and actually when I have these private discussions with other therapists, they disclose that they've had this themselves, is that I've been stalked.
It's scary. Like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now.
No, and nobody wants that in their regular life, let alone and we've all heard horror stories. I think that's enough to talk about and how
Care
to deal.
for yourself. Yeah, my husband has told me to get some mace and put it in my office because, you know, I do some couples work and sometimes you get a couple in your office and somebody has something going on that can be scary. And a lot of times we find ourselves alone in our office, or you have a home office. Yeah.
Or a lot of us see clients in the evening.
Yes, in the evening, especially couples.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So safety is definitely on point for sure. So we're kind of segueing into self-care naturally, like, I want to quit. Okay, how are you taking care of yourself? Or, you know, something I mentioned in the email that I sent you is like, maybe you should quit. Like, self-care is great, but there's also a point at which maybe you should try something else or take a break. So let's talk about self-care and where the line is between that. And yeah, you should probably move on, and that's okay. What do you have to say about that?
Right. Well, first of all, I love how you said that's okay if you don't, if you want to take a break or indefinite break. If decides that he or she wants to go in another realm, there's no taboo. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're not bound to this inextricably until we die.
Yeah, it feels like sometimes it feels like I am bound to this industry, but there are, like, every therapist is so different, and some are coming with different professional backgrounds. Like, you came from the corporate world, so you can, if you're feeling really burnt out and the self-care isn't cutting it, then there are so many different things you can do, or you can even do a combination. It can be maybe you see 5 or 10 clients a week that are sort of an easier demographic, and then you do some other things, like we're doing the university and doing the consult group, and, you know, hopefully in the next year we'll have a group practice going and supervision and stuff to, like, mix it up, so you still have your supportive income, but it's not all from therapy, very intense therapy clients. It's very intense work, for sure. I mean, some's more intense than what I deal with. You know, most of my people are pretty, you know, low key. I don't have to worry about my safety and things like that. And I still, every once in a while, I get that feeling like, you know, I'd really like to sit behind a desk today. I just have that urge.
Well, so many therapists, you start canvassing them, you realize they do about 3 things that comprise their actual profession. Teach, and
they teach.
some have side jobs, like my that is playing. So I think part of it is the moving target, and you just as you go along, whatever works.
Yeah. So you cut out a little bit there, but I think what you're saying is that you just adjust as you go along, and however you adjust, it's okay.
And are probably always going to adjust.
It's a moving target. Yeah, like as you go along throughout your career, things ebb and flow naturally, just like in life. You know, it's a part of life. It's not always going to be the same.
Yeah.
So, what kinds of things do you suggest that, like, prevent burnout? And this is in the realm of self-care. Maybe, you know, maybe before you answer that, like, what is self-care? It seems like such a like a catchphrase, sort of like mindfulness. It's like a self-care. What is self-care?
Right. And I think there's also this, well, I feel the mentality of self-care is important, and it's so extra. You don't even need it, and if you need an emergency situation in life.
Yeah. I only need to take care of myself if it's an emergency. It should be over time.
Yeah. It's not, oh, I'm ready to plink off the edge of my own sanity. No. This has got to be okay. Someone can't self-care because right, we don't have any, if we don't take care of ourselves, we have.
Yeah, it's just like the airplane, like put your mask on and then put your child's mask on.
Exactly.
So like I for my self-care, I like if I've done really well, this is more of like a reward, but it's kind of like self-care. Like I'll buy myself an outfit once a month just to say congratulations for getting up every day, self. And then I wear my outfit the next day and it feels really good. Or, I'll paint my nails or, go for a run. Exercise is important.
Exercise is fabulous. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
This shouldn't probably be self-care, but is getting enough sleep.
Getting enough sleep. Yes, like going to bed, going into your bedroom at 9:30, 10 o'clock, watching TV if you want for an hour and winding down.
And a lot of people have kids. If you have the kids, I tell them, look, I'm going to bed. Good night.
You know what? I teach my children about self-care through their bedtime. They're like, oh, will you lay next to me for like ever and a day? And I have to say, I love you very much. I'll lay next to you for like 5 minutes. And then I have to take care of myself and screw my head on straight because it's going to be spinning if I don't. And so.
Well, you just talking about that made me think about we taking care of ourselves teaches our.
Yeah, it teaches our clients for sure. Yeah, the boundaries teach us the clients. The things, I'm pretty open. So like I'll tell my clients, oh, I went for a run today or whatever. And that teaches them. And it's like part of the holistic process of therapy. It makes you a better therapist. Yeah.
Again, authentic. One of my favorite things to do, so frivolous, is to read Hollywood tabloid magazines.
What do you read?
Hollywood tabloid.
Oh yeah, Hollywood tabloid magazines.
I don't care what Kim Kardashian did yesterday, but it's so frivolous.
I think you just define self-care. It's like do something that doesn't matter. Like my husband has been he's a carpenter, but he was like a therapist in another life, or he's like this beautiful soul that just has all this wisdom, and he has taught me how to play like when you're a kid and your mind is free. I think that self-care is when you let your mind free like when you were a child. So like go outside and kick a ball with your dog. I mean, you did that when you were 10, but do it now. And that is that feeling of childhood and that carefreeness, I think, is like self-care, because you're unplugging from all those feelings that we were talking about earlier. Like always in it, always. I think therapists have a tendency to always just be serious. Like this is serious business. Yeah, I'm guilty. Yeah. So, well, Deanna, thank you so much for talking with us. I hope that you'll come back and talk with us about other things. Maybe you can have something to say about supervision and picking a supervisor and yeah.
Well, I'm doing this because these conversations are well overdue.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, keep in touch. Like, call me, and if you come to St. Louis, we should hang.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, bye.